The Chicago City Council Committee is meeting to discuss federal help for asylum seekers. The Immigrant and Refugee Rights Committee meeting started just moments ago. Alderpeople are expected to echo their previous calls to the federal government to issue work permits to both new migrants and long-term immigrant workers. The committee will also talk about the history of the city's welcoming city ordinance, making Chicago a sanctuary city for immigrants. But this meeting comes the same week as plans for a migrant tent camp in Brighton Park were scrapped after Governor J.B. Pritzker pulled state funding over soil safety concerns. That move came days after Mayor Brandon Johnson's office declared the site safe. Construction on the multi-million-dollar site came to a dead stop as it was nearing completion. That boondoggle prompted 3 alderpeople to send this letter to Mayor Johnson yesterday, demanding the resignations of 7 of his appointed top staffers. The letter focuses on wasted taxpayer dollars and what they believe is failed leadership. Ninth Ward Alderman Anthony Beale is one of the 3 who signed that letter. He joins us now via Zoom to talk about it. Alderman, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
The mayor and city council have faced criticism for several months, really, about the migrant crisis. Why do you think the resignations of these top aides would sufficiently address any concerns? I mean, after all, the mayor's spokesperson says the individuals it attacks, the letter attacks, are doing very serious work.
Well, just because they're doing very serious work doesn't mean they're making very serious errors. And they have made very serious errors when you look at trying to put migrants in a tent on a contaminated site. The community has totally been ignored. The community has been telling the mayor and his entire administration that the site was contaminated, that, there were things on the site that, they've been trying to build a school, parks, and all kind of things on that site, but they were unable to do it because of the contamination. Well, those contaminants just don't go away. And so I think this was done because they were desperate, they were under the gun, and they were totally ignoring the rules and the regulations that are in place to prevent people from being put in harm's way. And so now we have spent tens of millions of dollars on a site that is, is not conducive to be putting migrants on or anybody on. And they're trying to put 2,000 migrants on that particular site. And we've wasted all this money. So thank God the governor stepped in for the safety and the well-being. And you heard the governor himself said that, the administration may want to put people in harm's way, but he's not willing to put people in harm's way. Mm-hmm. And so this was a total debacle of taxpayer dollars, the whole process. And, as long as I've been in office, anybody who makes this kind of error that wastes tens of millions of taxpayer dollars, heads need to roll because they show that they're not adequate, they're not competent, and they don't know what they're doing when it comes to spending and leading this particular crisis.
Mm-hmm. So Alderman Beale, you are crystal clear in your criticism, but what about an alternative? What plan do you have or would you endorse to deal with all of the migrants and asylum seekers that are here in the city right now to house them?
Well, first of all, we need to put a limit. We need to stop the migrants from coming in. That's first and foremost, because we're spending upwards to $40 million a month right now. We cannot afford that. But the ones that are here, I tell you what, there's enough empty buildings here in the city of Chicago to where we could be spending that money to rehab existing buildings that are just sitting there vacant, rehab them, and then when this crisis is over, the community now has a freshly rehabbed building in their community that is now useful for the community to operate. And so that's what needs to be done. Quit trying to pop tents up, start rehabbing some of the brick and mortar that we have in our communities right now. I mean, I don't want any migrants in my community. My community is obvious, doesn't want any migrants. However, I have about 2 or 3 vacant buildings. One is about a 40-unit building that you can probably put a couple hundred migrants in that one. So we have buildings like that throughout the city of Chicago. Let's put those properties back online. And then when the migrants crisis and they move out, then we can move some quality families. And that's how we repopulate our wards Alderman, that have lost population.
Keeping migrants from coming into the city, though, doesn't seem to be an option for Mayor Johnson and, many members of the Progressive Caucus and many city leaders. With that being said, though, the mayor's been in office now for almost 7 months. Does this give you talk about these 7 staffers that you think should resign, but does this situation give you concerns about the mayor's leadership, his leadership, and also about the strained relationship he now has, we believe, with the governor.
Right. Well, I think that the mayor has shown a lack of leadership and lack of experience when it comes down to managing crises, when it comes down to managing a crisis such as this. I think he has shown poor leadership. And that's because he doesn't have quality, experienced people around him that know what they're doing. I can tell you, I've been in office for 24 years. I have more experience than everybody around him combined. And nobody has ever reached out and said, Alderman, can you come in and help us kind of navigate some of this? There are people out there that have experience in managing crises like this, but they're not being leaned on. And so we have people who know nothing about government, who know nothing about dealing with crises, making decisions, and they don't know what they're doing.
Alderman,
and
it's funny.
That goes all the way to the top.
We've heard other elected officials say the same in the last couple of days. But, you and Alderman Lopez, in particular, have been frequent and outspoken critics in the city council, not only of this administration, but the last one as well. Some might say you are using this matter to grandstand. Your response?
Well, how do you grandstand when you're trying to protect people from being put on a contaminated site? How do you grandstand when you're trying to protect hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars? I don't think that's grandstanding. I think I'm trying to be the voice of the people of the city of Chicago that are being rolled over by being dictated to, by trying to put a camp in their community who didn't want it, who are, we spending hundreds of millions of dollars. We have never said that we have to take care of these migrants. There's nothing on the books. There's nothing in our records and our laws that say we have to take care of the migrants that come to the city of Chicago to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. When you look at the people here in the city of Chicago who are already suffering, who are already starving for resources, I can do amazing things in my ward if you gave me $100 million a year.
Alderman,
I can transform my entire ward with that kind of money.
It's kind of, we're talking about two issues here. One is obviously the boondoggle that happened over the last couple weeks, and then, of course, how that money should be used instead. But I am going to have to stop you right there for time purposes.
And clearly, this issue continues to touch a nerve.
Right.
Alderman Anthony Beale from the 9th Ward on the South Side, thanks so much for being with us and your candid thoughts. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.